Aloha, this is your astrologer Tom, and in this video, I want to talk about oppositions in synastry. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I believe this can be a contributing factor to whether or not a relationship works. So, when in my relationship readings, one of the things that I pay attention to is the relationship of the personal planets, the relationship of Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, especially, and then also factoring Saturn and whatnot. But this isn't a video on how to do a relationship reading. This is a video on oppositions in synastry. One of the key contributing factors that I find is important to bring to the conscious awareness of a couple is whether or not they have some key planets in opposition. So if you haven't looked at my take on aspects, check out video number 7 because it is more than just the degrees. An opposition, yeah, 180 degrees plus or minus the orb, but it's a lot more than that. And so I would highly encourage you to check out video number 7. What I want to talk about here is the way I want to look at an opposition is it's the same modality. So it's either cardinal, fixed, or mutable. Cardinal, the initiators; fixed, the stabilizers; mutable, you're basically wrapping up one energy, preparing for the next one. It's the same polarity. It's either masculine or feminine, and it's a different element: fire, earth, air, water. So between an opposition, you run into a situation where you have the modality and the polarity the same, and you have a different element. So to use the element is what we're going to do to actually rise above the opposition, to be able to tap into the power of the opposition and not make it like you're butting heads. A lot of times, if in a relationship somebody has like Mercury opposing, especially if it's tight, if it's a tight, tight orb, you can butt heads with your communication. And the way to transcend that is to use the element. So let's go through the elements briefly. Fire, from an opposition perspective, and really in general, I like to consider passion, initiation, being quick, big picture, and the self. Earth, practical, tangible; physical world, methodical, deliberate. Air, ideas, communication, movement, conversations, partnerships. Water, feelings, emotions, creativity; heart, warmth, comfort, coziness. And then I want to introduce to you two words, if you're not already familiar about relationships. We have synastry and composite in astrology. And synastry is how you perceive your partner, how your partner perceives you. Sometimes synastry is referred to as compatibility, although I like to look at it more from a spiritual lens and more from a practical, how we use it and connect the two worlds together. And it's really how you perceive your partner and how your partner perceives you. Whereas the composite is the energy of the relationship itself. Okay. I tend to like the idea that from about 0 to 6 months in a relationship, there's much more synastry going on. And as the relationship begins to form and the two worlds start coming together to create that relationship, then the composite begins to really pick up. It's important to pay attention to both. So, what I want to say is in synastry, where it's basically your natal chart and your partner's natal chart. Let's say you have a Mercury in Cancer and your partner has a Mercury in Capricorn, opposing signs. We need to rise above this opposition by harmonizing the element. Both Cancer and Capricorn are cardinal signs, they're initiators. Both Cancer and Capricorn are feminine, right? They're receptive in nature. The fire and air signs are masculine, and the water and earth signs are feminine. And I have videos also that go a little bit more into each of the different elements and which signs are part of that element and what to pay attention to. And I can leave a link in the description below for them as well. So in this case, just by looking at what we described regarding water and earth, right? If water is feelings, emotions, creativity, heart, warmth, comfort, coziness, and earth is about the practical, the tangible, the physical world, methodical, deliberate. Well, here, a partner may be communicating with feeling, through feeling, and really a Mercury in Cancer actually feels the words. They actually feel into the words. Whereas a Mercury in Capricorn, it's just the word. It's the practical, tangible aspect of the word. It's very, there's really no feeling in it. And so in this, if somebody has this opposition in their synastry, I would really encourage that couple to better recognize how each other communicates, because whoever has the Mercury in Cancer, there's a feeling behind it. And if they get this rather cold, practical response from their partner, it's not going to feel right. It may actually, it can poke holes in the relationship, because what we actually want to do here is we actually have to harmonize the element. The person who has the Mercury in Cancer, this is what I mean by harmonizing the element. We have to look at what the other person's element is and begin to recognize how that's different and similar to us. So, a Mercury in Cancer needs to then look at the Mercury in Capricorn and say, oh, actually, they are just telling me practical, tangible things. And there's really no feeling, there's nothing to feel into. And then the Mercury in Capricorn looks over at the Mercury in Cancer and says, oh, they're communicating some sort of feeling. And it can even begin to be, how do you bring that feeling out in the practical and tangible things that you communicate? And then recognizing how you begin to incorporate the other element in the way that you communicate. So the Mercury in Cancer can bring the tangible aspect into their feeling. Hey, I feel like we need to connect more. And then maybe say something like, could we take a trip together? Is that something that, we could, we could find something that we could do just the two of us for a weekend. Right. So then they bring some practical information into it. Whereas the Mercury in Capricorn, if they just hear, I feel like we need to connect more, the Mercury in Capricorn natally is just like, what's this person telling me this for? Like, what is there me to do with it? What am I supposed to, like? They want to do something with it. Whereas if they lean into the feelings of the person, are like, oh, they're feeling a certain way, which is prompting them to want to say, okay, they feel like they want to connect more. What's a practical way we could connect more, and begin to relate that together? Okay. So recognizing that by default we tend to communicate the way that our Mercury is. We tend to communicate the way that we are natally. If you have a opposition like this in your synastry, you have to really begin to step into the other person's Mercury, and look at the element. So you want to look at, how is the other person communicating, right, from their element, and then also, how do you begin to bring their element into the way that you communicate? Because what that's going to do is that's going to basically begin to dissolve the opposition, and you're going to be able, you're rising above it. You're actually recognizing that instead of these being so different, you're actually able to then relate. And you can do this with any other opposition. You can do this, so I look at, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Saturn generally, in a relationship reading. And you can do this in that, just in looking at the other planets as well, right? So if you factor into Venus, it'll be how your partner shows and receives love in the same way, like how you show and receive love. And if you have an opposition that's very different, so let's say one partner has a Venus in Sagittarius and the other partner has a Venus in Gemini. The Venus and Gemini partner may just want to talk all the time about random stuff, and that's how they're showing love. Whereas the Venus in Sag is like, they want to go and just, ready, fire, aim. They just want to actually move forward and give me the purpose of why you're telling me this, and let me go do something with it, and figure out, how this, like, basically move with the information. Whereas a Venus in Gemini, much more into detail, much more like, to a Venus in Sag, it may actually feel uh like it's just irrelevant information. But the Venus in Sag then would need to understand that the Venus in Gemini is communicating as a way of expressing love. And then the Venus in Sag can recognize that, and then also say, and then also help the person methodically still move forward if there's any information to act upon. And I think it would be beneficial for the Venus in Sag to understand what the intention behind the communication is. Is it just that the partner is communicating their feelings, right? So you can do this with each of the personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. And you can also then start blending them together, because if somebody has, let's say there's a couple who has, the Venus and Sag person has a Mercury in Capricorn, and the Venus and Gemini person has a Mercury in Cancer. Well, now if the Mercury in Capricorn isn't, like, they want this practical tangible something they can go do something with. Whereas the Venus and Gemini, Mercury and Cancer person feel that needs to feel into the way that they're communicating with you. And then they actually feel that connection. They feel it actually kind of, it's like they feel the connection as a result of the communication. So you can start blending them. And anyway, so in synastry, so this isn't just applying to Mercury's. This isn't just applying to Cancer and Capricorn, right? This is something that you can do across the board, and then you can start blending them together. And that's why I go an hour and a half or more, or in a relationship reading. But let me ask you this: what happens in a composite then when there's an opposition in synastry? So if a composite is the energy of the relationship, and a synastry is how you perceive your partner, how your partner perceives you. Well, if there's an opposition in the synastry, a composite is created by midpoints. So the composite then becomes one of the two squaring signs. So in the composite, you actually get that planet in one of the two squaring signs of the opposition, right? So a square, which can create, it's the same modality, cardinal, fixed, immutable. There's an opposite polarity now, masculine, feminine, different element, fire, earth, air, water. So if the opposition was same modality, same polarity, different element, in the composite, then in the relationship itself, what flipped was the polarity. What flipped was the polarity. So if in the synastry you had Cancer and Capricorn, in the composite you'll have the Mercury in either Aries or Libra. Okay, and then what we need to do here is we need to grow the relationship by harmonizing the polarity. Because what this will do here in this case, Cancer and Capricorn feminine, now they're switching to the cardinal masculine signs. They went from the cardinal feminine signs to the cardinal masculine signs. So what ends up happening then is if they haven't harmonized the element well enough, right, then you can end up butting heads because you both switch to the opposite polarity. So in a Cancer Capricorn situation, one wanting to communicate feelings, one wanting practical, tangible. If in the relationship together, it's Aries Libra, like let's say Aries, you basically have both parties that then pick up what's Aries. Aries is a fire sign, right? And so you have basically picking up this passion, initiation, quick, big picture self. So it that one that could turn into um discussions, right? That can turn into passion within the relationship, but also opportunities to butt heads. And it's it can be in such a way where you're not actually addressing what's really going on, because the Aries energy in this case, let's say that Cancer and Capricorn resulted in a composite where the Mercury was in Aries. Each person might want to be communicating. They're all about themselves. They're communicating like what the other person isn't doing and what that person wants, and they're doing it with a level of fire, right, with a level of passion, but also it could be butting heads. Versus if the Cancer and Capricorn result in a composite of Libra, maybe both are trying to then do what they perceive the other partner to want, and they're actually neglecting themselves a bit, or they're actually not hearing what the other partner is actually saying. So rising above the synastry, right? Rising above the element between the Cancer water element and the Capricorn earth element, right? If you've been able then to harmonize that, what that then results in is in the composite, you're able to bring whichever the composite sign is in your chart. And whether it's Aries or Libra in this case will depend on whether the Cancer and Capricorn are closer, basically the opposition is closer to Aries or closer to Libra to give the midpoint. But anyway, that's math. We don't need to get into that right now. The idea here then is, let's say in a synastry, if you resolve the element between, then let's say that the Mercury is in Aries in the composite, you're both able to take initiative and communicate what you individually want, basically in a calm, centered, and balanced way. If the composite then turns into Libra, you're actually both relating more to the other person, right? Your communication shows a way of relating, right? So realistically, then, right, people sometimes just look at the composite and they go, well, okay, let's talk about the relationship. You have to look at the natal charts and you have to look at the synastry, right? So anytime someone comes to me, like, can we do a relationship reading? I'm like, we got to do an individual natal reading first for each person because you got to know who you both are, right? And then look at synastry, which shows how you're going to perceive the other person. Synastry is um, the synastries and the composite I actually do in a relationship reading after two natal readings have been done, and this is because we can look at how each person relates after we know who the two people are, and then we can look at the energy of the relationship. You can't just jump to the composite because it's not giving you enough information to be able to rise above the energies in the relationship. So somebody who has a Mercury in Cancer natally, they need to understand that they actually feel into the words and they communicate with feeling. The feeling may be more internal or external, generally depending on where the Mercury is in their chart. The Cancer and Capricorn or Mercury in Capricorn needs to understand the practical way they're communicating and the desire to make it tangible in whatever they're hearing. Okay, only then can we talk about, okay, how does this play out? Where how are you perceiving the other person? Because a Mercury in Cancer may look over at a Mercury Capricorn and be like, "You're just cold. Like there's no feeling in what you're saying." And and the Mercury in Capricorn is like, "Well, because you're telling me stuff that I can't do anything with." And if we didn't fully establish how they are individually, being able to relate that, there's a disconnect. So we had to establish who they are individually, then we relate it, then we look at the composite then becomes a emergent. It becomes the net effect of resolving the problems or the lower expression or the harmonizing of the element within the opposition within the synastry. Okay. So here then the Aries and Libra, yeah, you could either in this case, if they haven't dealt with the opposition, then they could either be you have the lower expression of Aries and Libra that can pick up. But if you deal with the opposition, the Aries and Libra becomes a lot easier to navigate. And it's like, well, how come you guys are able to get along so well? It's like because you actually understand how you communicate, how your partner communicate, and the same thing can apply for the Venus, the Mars, and the Moon, especially, right? So yeah, I mean, let me know if you have any oppositions in your synastry with your partner, and in the comments below. And if you like this video and like to see more like it, please subscribe. And as always, aloha, ahui ho. I'll talk with you again soon. Take care.